Coming up on the Brave Sports Network, Cedric Thomas program coming off a bye week. Alcorn gets ready to take on UAPB in Memphis. And we'll talk all about that game. We'll talk about the bye week, and we'll look ahead to what we can expect this weekend coming up. A 6 o'clock kickoff in Memphis against UAPB. SWAC play starts Saturday for just about everyone in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We'll talk all about that with head coach Cedric Thomas with your questions, your text, and tweets. That's coming up in 30 seconds here on the Brave Sports Network.
Here, every journey is unique, but no one walks alone. At the Alcorn State University School of Business, we don't just teach business, we always empower visionaries who dare to reimagine it. From day one, you'll forge connections and develop the confidence to lead in a rapidly evolving world. Join a legacy of trailblazers who don't just respond to change, they drive it. Always ahead, always empowering, always Alcorn.
2 hours ago.
Coming up here, the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you can join us here on the Braves Network, 91.7 WPRL, WPRL.org, WMIS, WTYJ, 1240 AM, 97.7 Fayette Natchez, NatchezRadio.com, 90.1 WMPR in Jackson, and on Facebook Live, WPRL. Glad you can join us for the Cedric Thomas program coming off a bye week. We'll look ahead to UAPB. We'll talk about what the team did during the course of this bye week. We'll take your questions, your comments as we get ready for UAPB. No more bye weeks. We got an early bye week, and so we're going to be playing all the way through every week. A number of teams were off this past Saturday. Kind of unusual in my opinion. We'll talk about it with head coach Cedric Thomas. You can give us a call, 601-877-6595. You can text a question, 601-301-2611 on X. Tall Man Radio. We'll take a 1-minute break. We'll get the show started after this timeout here on the Braves Network.
We believe nursing isn't just a major, it's a calling. We're not just teaching skills. We're cultivating trailblazers who transform healthcare. Every breakthrough, every compassionate touch starts with curiosity, courage, and community. At the Alcorn State University School of Nursing, passion fuels innovation. Your journey starts here. Always innovating, always transforming, always Alcorn.
Founded in 1920, the Southwestern Athletic Conference has produced some of the most iconic names in sports. Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Alcorn State, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, Grambling State, Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M, Southern, Texas Southern, and the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff have united to embark on a new era of greatness. The Southwestern Athletic Conference, building champions for life.
Hi, I'm Mississippi.
And welcome to the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you could join us. I'm Charles Edmond. Our producers, Jamario Brooks and Cedric Tillman, here in the beautiful campus of Alcorn State University here in our studio. Glad you can join us as we get ready to get back to work and get back to action. Glad you could join us. Charles Edmond, Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas. Coach Thomas, how you doing, sir?
I'm blessed, Mr. Charles.
Coach Thomas, you know, it's not about the host, but I'm not doing well, Coach Thomas. You know why?
What's going on?
I got a chance to watch some NFL games. I'm a Rams fan. You saw what happened yesterday with the Rams and Philadelphia. I know you're probably getting ready, but the Rams had 2 field goals blocked in the final 5 minutes to lose to the Eagles, okay?
That's tough. They're professionals.
It's tough. Then I turn on Green Bay and Cleveland. They had a punt blocked, which was a big factor in that game. And then Tampa Bay and the Jets, another special teams deal. So the point I'm making here is that, and this goes to what we talk about with offense, defense, and special teams, Coach Thomas. I'm just wondering, and you at Tampa Bay's camp, how much they work on special teams, because special teams decided 3 games in the early window yesterday.
Yeah, it was a lot. You know, those guys had a lot of periods where they just kind of did that each facet. Every day we was there, you know, they worked on it. You know, and so that's unfortunate. That's just today's sports. You know, you got to just tie all the loose ends. You got to have personnel that, you know, you can't take it for granted. But that says, you know, a lot about the landscape of just football in general, to see guys who getting paid millions of dollars and coaches that's making millions of dollars. go out there on that stage and then things are not executed. So it put a lot of things in perspective.
It's offense, it's defense, and it's special teams.
Almost definitely. Yep.
I need a therapist, because what I saw yesterday was just unbelievable. Not one, but 2 field goals in the final 4 minutes of the game. Could have beat the defending champs. And the same guys blocked both of them. One was a block, scoop, and score for a touchdown, a walk-off block. Unbelievable.
They got next Sunday. They got to put it behind them and make sure they don't lose it twice, because, that'll happen. But that guy probably fired if it's the same person that did it.
Yeah. Well, it obviously brings it close to home in terms of what we work on, what you guys work on in terms of special teams. You start practice with special teams, field goal, and all of that. And then the last period of practice before the Hail Mary to end practice, you go over that as well with Coach Fosselman and just the alignment and assignment on special teams. Do you think, just overall, how much time do you think you spend every practice? 30 minutes if you had to put a clock on it?
Yeah, roughly about 30 minutes. Each one is about 7 to 8 minutes apiece, and then we do 3 a day. So roughly about 32 minutes.
Yeah, so it's a lot to work on though, but it's just so important. Just the finer things when it comes to getting off a punt, or attempting a field goal, or the blocking schemes for it. All that, it's a little more complicated now with the leaping and all of that.
Yeah, most definitely. And you're getting some really good special team coaches that's doing a good job scheming you up, just spending time in there to try to find all those ways to be able to get those things, rectified. So it's a tough deal. And so if you can, try to, plan it out, accordingly in time, in your schedule, anywhere you can do that. Just kind of looking at hours, we start off with field goal and punt, that's going to be roughly, 5 minutes, every morning. But then we got the whole 10-minute block to be able to do it. So you anywhere from, 35 to, maybe 40 minutes. And then you still got offense and defense. And you got guys that got to have classes are going to class at 10 o'clock, so got to leave at 9:30. So it's a crunch, and you got to be efficient, in it. And these special teams, man, that's one thing about this league is so much better, just from that standpoint. And so you got to work on it, and guys got to execute it on Saturday.
In the grand scheme of things, in a perfect world, in the world of football that we're in, do you think enough time is being spent on special teams?
No, I don't think it's enough time being spent on football, period. Now you take 2 days away. You got a 20-hour rule where you can only practice so much, and then you're getting so many young adults that didn't really grow up playing some of the things that we learned, the nuances just in somebody's backyard or just playing around. When you take that away and you got a lot of video games and, a lot of people are not just really going outside as much. And so, you take 2 days away, you add 20 hours a week with a workload on top of the game. It's just not a whole lot of time, from my standpoint. You're always looking at yourself on a Friday when you're on the bus, like, did I miss anything? So you want to do a walkthrough at the hotel when you get there, and you walk through on Saturday, and you still find yourself, 5 minutes before kickoff saying, man, I forgot, I didn't get a chance to work this, so I don't think it's enough time.
Is there ever a Saturday in which, as you cross that sideline, as you see the ball kicked off, where you feel like, yeah, we got everything in that we need to get in?
No. In my 20-some years, never. It's always, man, I wonder, did we get this look? We missed that look. Did we see this enough? Did we see that enough? So you just try to find ways to be able to do it. And then, the recruiting aspect is that much important. So if you got those guys, sometimes, schematics don't matter. If you got a Sterling Shippett that's down there just kicking butt, then it really don't matter sometimes. But, when you get that talent canceled out, when you get to those really good games and teams match up, then it plays a major part.
We'll talk with Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas coming off the bye week. You can text a question, 601-301-2611 on X Tall Man Radio, 601-877-6595 if you have a question. So, Coach, how was the bye week?
It was productive. We had a lot of work, kept the same practice schedule, same structure, got a chance to spend more time, on special teams and more time on just fundamental things, going back in, self-critiquing ourselves. And so, I thought we got a lot out of it.
Is it possible, this is a crazy question, is it, because I'm crazy right now based on what I just saw over the weekend, my team's losing the way they lost. Is it possible to win or lose? And I heard somebody say, and this is common, you can't win the bye week, you can't lose the bye week. Is it possible that you can win or lose the bye week depending on the work that you got in? Is that even possible? Is that a crazy question to ask?
No, it isn't. Yeah, you can win. You get guys back healthy. That's the first thing. And then you get a week of preparation. It's what you do with those extra days of preparation. So it's major. This is kind of a little different. Having it so early. But in the landscape of it, is you can win. We won some games. Doing the bye week. You get opportunity to get in there and get that film done, and add some things and then change some things up. So it's a major part. What coaches do nowadays.
How can you lose the bye week?
You let guys just sit around and not do anything. And you quote unquote is just rest. And sometimes when you get it rolling and you're being efficient, that time off, sometimes it hurts you when you just sit around and, not do a whole lot. And, you kind of lose that luster, especially if you don't keep, guys' routine. It's tough for grown people to not be in routine, but you get a 18, 19, 20-year-old brain that's just all of a sudden now it's an off week instead of a bye week. It'll be hard trying to get them back in the mode, that Sunday, that Monday, trying to just, turn it back on.
Some teams in this conference are going to have 3 bye weeks in the course of this season. For ours, it's an early bye week. Were you able to let them go home during this time? Usually when the bye week is when it normally is in the midway point of the season. You work hard to Thursday and then you got Friday, Saturday, and you're back at it Sunday. Were you able to do that or do something different this time?
Most of them stayed around. We practiced that Friday morning, and so we still had classes, and so we had a few to go home. But it wasn't many, when I talked to the guys and we just told them, hey, look, if you do go home, text us. And there wasn't a whole lot of text messages, being on that road. And so just making sure that they get to their destination safe and sound. So I don't think it was much time for, to get off the field at, 11 o'clock and then, go to school or even if have some online classes to go home and then come back for team meetings at 3 o'clock.
So when you look at the bye week and just some of the things that you worked on, coming off the Northwestern State game, coming off the Alabama A&M game, and then you got Mississippi State. What are some of the things as you look at it? I know you always have a holistic approach in looking at it from the top of the mountain and just seeing everything. At this point, what are some of the things that you're pleased with? What are some of the things that we definitely have to clean up? And I asked last week, is it about tweaking or is it about some things you got to overhaul? But you said it was more about tweaking some things. So just talk about some of the things you tweaked.
In the secondary, we just kind of, opened up some communication, lines of communication better, kind of shutting some calls down. We get Jeff McKelton back this week. He's a 2-year starter for us. That kind of would help. Changing some signals and things of that sort, and just fundamentally going back to the basics to understand, why those mishaps happen. Up front, changing some personnel around, trying to get fast on the edge. Coach Fossman and Coach Rowe did a really good job of putting a new package together with just some of those edge guys. That'll really help. Linebackers, those guys are playing at a high level up front. We added, a new lineman that's going to really help. Andre Barton, he'll be playing some different phases, inside the offensive line room. And, just narrowing it down to, who those core guys are that's going to kind of help us, turn the corner and putting guys in different spots and situations. And so when we looked at all of it, it was most of the plays, from a negative standpoint was just really self-inflicted. We kind of did it to ourselves. And so we came battle the team across the sideline and also kind of deal with us. And so we talked to them about, why it happened, identifying it, and how to rectify it. And so that, and even the kicking game, some of those mishaps are just holding the football, doing a better job inside the fundamental piece of ball carrying. And so once you go back and you look at it, you're sitting there saying, hey, you shot yourself in the foot. Now we just got to be efficient, and we just got to play 4 quarters with everybody being on the same page.
Well, I hate to be on the special teams tangent. I'm still on the special teams, Coach. Just for us in special teams, there are some situations that we've seen through the first 3 games in which we bring the ball out, let it go out the back of the end zone. We know where that starts. But there are some situations where we brought balls out. You catch it on the kickoff at the 3 or 4. If you let it go out, obviously you get in better field position. What's your philosophy, and what do you tell your guys in terms of returning those kickoffs? Because if you let it go out, obviously you get decent field position. But when you don't get it to the 20-yard line, you start where where it is.
Yeah, it was scared money don't make no money. We work on it, and so you got guys like Reggie Davis and Tyler Citizens, and I think our average is pretty good. Our average is actually higher than where the ball would be placed if we put it out the end zone. And so we're going to continue to push the issue and be aggressive, in that standpoint. And so, Coach Fossman is doing a really good job. And as long as our average, my thing to him, as long as our average stays more than where the ball will be placed, then we'll continue to run it out. Because that at least give us, if it's 2 yards or 1 yard or 5 yards more, that's 5 yards or 3 yards or 2 yards more than what we got if it would have went out the end zone.
And then on punt returns, you hear the phrase that you have your feet on the 10-yard line. If it goes over your head, you let it go. Is that kind of how it works now? Is there a different philosophy with that?
Yeah, they didn't kind of change it to 5 now. It used to be 10, but you're getting these punters, man, that's doing a really good job. Got all the backspin and all the different torques on that football. So, it's kind of heels on the 5 now. That's a whole lot more room than just sitting there on the 10. And these special team guys, pinning your back. Still, if you're inside the 9, still inside the 8, that's still a tough terrain to try to get out of. So, that's kind of been changed, but it's to each philosophy of the head coach and the special team coordinator.
Are you happy with the punt and kickoff returns that we've had?
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely, excited about the kickoff return. I still feel like it's a little more meat on the bone. We had about 2 holding calls this year. They kind of pushed us back on some explosive. I think we can get that, squared away. And then we just got to hone in on the punt return aspect. We got a fumble there, to end up leading to a drive that got a score. And so we just got to get those things cleaned up. And I think if we do that and we just maintain the possession, I think that'll just help us. That'll just kind of give us a shot in the arm. And so we're going to continue to work it and continue to put guys back there we feel like that can keep the football.
Yeah, and I know when you talk about the defensive side of it, too, giving teams a short field, against Mississippi State, they had 4 drives in the first half. The average starting position was at our 32-yard line. Doesn't matter, I guess, if it's Mississippi State or Mississippi Valley. You give a team a short field, it makes it tough.
Yeah, and when you look at the tape, Mississippi State had a lot to do with it. When they got guys that's way bigger, way faster, and way stronger, it's hard for you to get down there. And I watched the film, and went through it with a fine-tooth comb. That wasn't all on our babies. They trying their tails off. Now, the punter got to do a better job of putting some air on it. But they were just so big and massive, they just kind of mashed us and just pushed us all together. And so, the guys fought their tails off to try to get off. And then you see us start to go to some rugby stuff to get it on the edge and kind of solidified it. But, all that wasn't just on Alcorn. It had a lot to do with Mississippi State also.
When you have that situation and your team's playing hard like that and they just making plays, as a coach, what do you think about there? I mean, they're trying their tails off. We've seen these games against, SWAC teams, against other opponents, and probably other coaches thinking the same thing. Your guys are playing hard, they're pushing hard, but it's just such a hard matchup.
Yeah, you just, as a coach and as a protector and all of us parents, we got 115 babies over there. Or we're trying to put them in the best position to be successful. So, one that just kind of eats at you, what can I do schematically that we have, that we work, that can kind of free them up and allow them to be able to get down and cover. And those guys on the other side get paid a lot of money also. And so I thought the rugby deal kind of stopped the bleeding a little bit. Frank Shank won, but that was his first time doing it. And so I thought once we start to get it on the edge a little bit and the ball was rolling, we bought time for guys to get down there. So my mindset is always, protecting these student athletes, but also just how can we put them in the best position to be successful so they're just not outmanned and outmatched, from that standpoint.
From the rugby philosophy, Coach, what does that do when you kind of go to that style of kicking and trying to deal with the coverage?
What it does is just kind of let the rush get down. It's non-timing now, so once the punter catches, he just kind of floats to the edge, and wait for the guys to return, to get down to the returner, and then, kind of kicks it. And that allowed them guys to have an automatic clack in their head to where they can get off, and it buys them time to get down a little farther, as opposed to kicking in rhythm and timing. And it's tough, if you hadn't done it, you got to get the snap and you got to get the moving sideways, and then you got to try to square yourself up to get that ball, in a really good situation. But it also just buy time for the for the punt team to, get down there and cover.
So let's start. We talked about special teams. I guess I need to get off the special teams because it still bothers me. But got to move forward. Let's start with the offense, Coach. Jalen Tolbert obviously starting and doing his thing. Assess his play, Coach, so far through what you've seen from him, Northwestern State, Alabama A&M, Mississippi State. How would you grade his performance and getting adjusted to this to this box storm offense?
I think he's ahead of the curve right now. I think I'm really excited about him. Coming down the stretch in this conference play. He showed he can lead. Showed some arm talent. And I think the best is yet to come. He'll use his legs more. Coach got some things for him to be able to try to extend some plays with his legs. And even in the run game. But I'm just proud of him. Playing that position. It's tough anywhere. And so he's done a phenomenal job so far, and still, got a lot of work to do. And he was in, early this morning, continue to do that work. So I'm excited about his growth and them games that we play, like we talked about. We got to put those behind him, and he got to work to get his first win as an Alcorn Brave.
He's pretty fiery. The first time I saw him in practice in the fall, he's a fiery young man. He wants to win. He wants to do the best that he can possibly do, and as he's showing that type of leadership, just kind of taking ownership and those type of things.
Yeah, he does. Sometimes we got to curtail him down, but we want him to be himself. And I think now that he knows it's his team. He's in control. He comes over and talks to the defense. Him and Steve and those guys got a great relationship. And so we just got to help him and rally around him and help him lead us. And he just got to make all the plays he's supposed to make. And then one of those two that, those championship quarterbacks, need to make.
And then in the backfield, we know Braves football is known for ground and pound. How would you assess Ja'Cory and Sewell, Davis, Citizen, and just the running game in totality?
Overall, I think those guys are playing like their hair on fire. They're playing lights out. I think Sewell and Reg are two NFL backs. I think those guys can play on the next level. We've seen that, coming from here. But just not as fired up about Tyler Citizen yet. He had the major fumble. And we gotta hold on to the football. He shows it in spurts, and can be dynamic. But the name of the game is football, and it's the most important component to what we do. And so I know he can do it, but until he can show me consistently on Saturday that he can maintain it, then we're gonna use that third back as a carousel to see who can maintain the football. Also pick up the pass protection, and also give us a chance when those two guys get tired.
Yeah, I mean, in that max protection, when you have backs to the left and right, talk about how those guys, Citizen, Sewell, Davis, in terms of blocking for the quarterback when you put that big package in there.
They do a really good job. That's what's exciting about those guys. They so selfless that they'll really do a good job and want to, to block. You see Reggie chop guys down. He tear ACLs, man. He fired up about it. Sewell, that was one of the deals that the scouts wanted to kind of see him do, and he's improved there. And Tyler got a lot of work to do, but he's willing to throw his body in there. So we're excited about those guys with blitzes and some of the max pro looks that we get, so they can maintain the quarterback upright.
And then from the offensive line standpoint, bigger offensive line there and doing a good job in protecting the quarterback. And we'll talk about us trying to get to the quarterback because you don't have a sack this season. But how would you assess the protection from the offensive line?
They giving the quarterback a chance, and that's all we can ask for. To keep him upright and be able to let him sit in the pocket, and navigate, some of the pass concepts. So they've done that. When asked to move people around, consistently, they've done that. So I'm excited about those guys. That's the rock for us. It starts up front, so we expect those guys every time we pull up in anybody's city and state, in anybody's stadium. We expect that to happen, and so we just gotta do it early, do it consistent, and Coach Watson has a lot of guys, man, that can go in there and mix it up and play, and so we think that's the leadership part and the biggest group, right now, which is always good when you got an O-line, man, that can move people out the way.
Is there any pleasant surprises from you individually in terms of how that line group has played?
Yeah, Aid, man. Aid Diallo, he got his first 3 stars this year. Kid didn't play much since he been here, and he's starting at one of the hardest positions, not only in this league, but everywhere, left tackle. And so he's had some pop, getting better every single day, every practice. He's doing an amazing job, and so I'm excited about him and his development as we're going down the stretch as a true sophomore.
From the receiving category, Coach, I'm doing high school football, NFL, college, watching that. I can't remember a year in which I've seen receivers run open and just getting the ball to them. And we've had receivers open. I mean, so when you look at that wide receiver group, the fact that we would like to get them the football more, but the fact that even against Mississippi State, there was some separation there. Against Northwestern State, against Alabama A&M, we got some separation. We got some pretty speedy receivers. Talk about that group.
Yeah, you keep saying that we can't get it to them, but we're getting it to them. They got to catch it. You go back and do your same evaluation, that space that they're getting. Just look at how many times that ball is hitting their hand, and we're not maintaining it. And that's what we got to do. Running past people. And I'm a DB guy. It don't affect us if you're not catching the football. Nobody's saying, "Ooh, man, they fast. Let me bag up until you catch the football." And so we got too many explosives out there that we didn't come down with, and so that's in the past. And we got guys that got to go out and we got to catch the football because everyone matters now. And it's like a gut punch, when you do get that separation and then you don't come down with the football. So that's some things that we definitely worked on last week. The guys that's going to maintain the possession is going to catch it is the ones that's going to be out there. So we're excited about those guys. They up for the challenge. Those guys will work, and they understand that, hey, we just got to bring the football down.
So you're at a point where you got a lot of guys on this roster, and now you're just honing in on, I guess, the ones that are making the plays, the ones that will be out there, the ones that don't. Well, it could be a challenge.
Yeah, that's it. When you're coming down this conference stretch, everything matters now. Everything matters, and you kind of had that 3-game dress rehearsal. The film, it is who you put yourself, who you put out there, and if that's who you are on tape, that don't mean you're not going to play. You're not going to be a piece to the puzzle. Your piece just might not be as big as others, and so whatever your job description entails, we expect you to do that at a high level.
So individually, from the wide receiver and tight end group, what's been the pleasant surprise in that group?
Mako has made some really good catches for us. I hate he got banged up and missed that Mississippi State game. Omar Young Blakes has really been steady Eddie inside. You see him have some catches against Mississippi State and a big catch at A&M. So he's been doing a really good job. Tyron, minus the drop over there on the sideline against not Northwestern, but Mississippi State. Just got to get physical at the point of attack. He has to maintain that, and he has the opportunity to be able to do it. And so, those are some of the guys that, we're excited about, catching the football. And there's so many more, so many more of those guys that I've seen, from a practice standpoint, go out and catch the football at a high catch radius and be able to do it. And so those guys got to do it, on Saturday. And I think that lightens the box up for this run game, and also it pushes those guys back. And I've seen them do it. And so we just got to do it, on Saturday.
Speaking of Mako, you mentioned he was banged up. What is his status coming up this week?
He said he was good. Met with him yesterday. He was moving around well, and so we expect him to be ready for Saturday.
What does he do? And we know what Blake's can do. We know what Warren can do. How does Mako change things up in the secondary when he's involved?
He just give you a point of view from somebody who's been back there, so we see it from both ways, and so he understands where to sit down in different pockets. He got manipulative speed where he might not seem as fast, but he just got subtle speed and understand what the route concept entails, and so he definitely get his wide out group a boost just by being older and seeing it from the other side.
What about the tight ends? What are you seeing in that in terms of getting them more involved?
Cole Williams, man, he done played more, at tight end than he has since he been here. He's physical. See him out to practice. He taped up from head to toe, but he's a fighter. Physical kid. He's doing a really good job. In that room, and then we move Andre Barton, a left tackle that we had to tight end. So he's gonna give us some much needed push, up front, in this 11 personnel system that we'll run sometimes. So we're excited about, him and him transitioning to, helping the run game.
Well, speaking of the run game, you talked about Jalen Tolbert, opportunities to run the football and doing that, and then what he can do with his feet as well as the pocket. You see him making that adjustment to where he's got to take off, and he does that as compared to standing tall in the pocket, just trying to that quarterback presence.
Yeah, that's just a part of, his matriculation, inside the system and understanding what defense is giving him. It's going to be a time for him to, put it down and run it and carry, and it's going to be some time for him to sit in there and stay strong and throw it. So he's been playing a position all his life, so he know what this look like. Gales is giving him a different menu or different pictures of what it should look like, and so he just got to go out and execute that.
You played a lot of players on both sides against Mississippi State, obviously. So on the offensive side of the ball, some of the players on the offensive side, we'll talk about the defense coming up here, but offensively, some of the guys that hadn't seen action, saw a lot of action against Mississippi State that kind of caught your attention.
I'm excited about Trey Miner. He was banged up doing camp, didn't do much, and had some really good practice days. And so I'm excited about him. He gives us a really good opportunity to stretch the field, whether in the backfield or in the kicking game aspect. We're excited about him. Still waiting on Jacoby and, Matthews. I think he can be a shot in the, side for these guys in this football team. So we expect to see him a little more, if things, work out from a practice standpoint. And so those are just two right off that I know. Talking to the coaches, name has come up a lot to be able to use, as we get ready for this conference run.
As we look at some of the SWAC stats offensively, Jacorian Sewell's number 6 in the league in rushing the football, 4 sacks given up through the first handful of games. So that's the look at the offense. We'll take a break right here. Halfway through the Cedric Thomas Show, we'll look at the defense. We'll look at some of the games that were played over the weekend, and we'll look ahead to UAPB, a team that beat Lincoln and scored some points. And remember, we saw this UAPB team last year. They had Hagans and Giovanni Gibson. They're no longer with the program, but they got some pieces that we got to deal with. We'll talk all about that when we come back here on the Cedric Thomas Show. Halfway through, we'll be right back after this 1-minute timeout.
Here, every journey is unique, but no one walks alone. At the Alcorn State University School of Business, we don't just teach business, we always empower visionaries who dare to reimagine it. From day one, you'll forge connections and develop the confidence to lead in a rapidly evolving world. Join a legacy of trailblazers who don't just respond to change, they drive it. Always ahead, always empowering, always Alcorn.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure.
$1.
Appreciate you.
Got it.
All right, welcome back to the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you can join us, Coach. We were just talking about the running back room, and there was a text that came in and said, this week coming up, can we see all of our running backs again? Other than Sewell, they felt like they didn't see much in Starkville. We want to see what we have going into the meat of our schedule. So you want to, obviously, a game like Mississippi State, in which the score is what it was, you want to see everyone in the backfield get involved. And I guess this person texting wants to see even more of the running back room.
Yeah, we're gonna do whatever it takes to win. Whatever that personnel look like, then we're just gonna put it out there. So we don't go into a game normally saying, hey, look, we're gonna play everybody. That was Mississippi State, but that was an anomaly. And so we just want to come out of Memphis with a win. So whoever get back there that's gonna help us win, then we definitely gonna do it.
Well, let's talk about the defensive side, Coach. I think one year we won the sack award many years ago, and just it's been a struggle to get to the quarterback. I'm sure you've looked at that. What are some of the things we have to do to get after and put the quarterback on the ground?
Just kind of we got to get fast on the edge, and so we're gonna put Tobias Hinton, at the defensive end and move Eric Thomas down. And we expect those guys to kind of give us a little bit of boost and get fast. Keenan McCanstry, he'll also go from the linebacker spot to the defensive end, and Brendan Gibson. So they should give us a little shot in the arm, and then we got to generate the pressure. Whatever we got to do to rattle the quarterback and get him to the turf. Then if we got to send safeties and do all that. We know it's a quarterback-driven league, and so we got to do a better job of just finding the nuances with these pass pro to be able to get these quarterbacks off their spot.
I was excited that first play of the game against Mississippi State. Shapen was hit, throwing the ball deep, and I said, okay, if we can get that type of pressure in that game, kind of shake up Shapen, who knows? But just trying to get to the quarterback through these first few games, just trying to shake things up there.
Yeah, Coach Rowe, he did a really good job, and system-wise, that game plan was good. We got some hits on him, and so I expect him to do that, going forward. And we just got to do a better job on the coverage aspect when we do get to him, to make sure we're above the cut and we can, put that whole play together.
So how would you assess the defensive line play so far?
Kind of inconsistent, but that's only because of, different pieces in and out. Those guys have done a good job in the core runs. Like, we're not getting any, major runs inside. It's more the outside run, type deals. And so those guys are playing tough. But, it's just like the O-line, those pieces, so used to being with each other and being out, having some pieces, not being able to play so far. It's kind of, it's throwing off, their timing. But, those guys are playing well inside. We just got to do a better job of just anchoring down on the end.
Well, what is the key to sealing that up?
Just continue to move them bodies and make sure that we kind of move, faster guys on the edge. This is a fast league. And so when you got guys on the edge that can run and track down quarterbacks and you'll be able to, beat these tackles, then that's what you want. And so we want them guys up front to continue to just be sound and solid inside. And so we just got to continue to put them guys in there and let them hunt.
In the middle of that defense, Coach, how would you assess the linebacker play?
Steve playing his tail off. Besides the MA against Northwestern, man, he's been consistent. He's making a lot of tackles, making the checks for us, getting us lined up, making a lot of plays. You see him get a couple hits on the quarterback, and anytime when the SEC team acts, hey, we was, trying to identify number 3, then you're doing something right. And Mosaic Roberts, man, he's been playing, with his hair on fire. He's the youngster that's doing a really good job. So that core has really been strong for us. And so we expect, their best football is, actually ahead of them.
And then on the back end of that defense, Coach, just trying to stretch us a little bit, how would you assess the corners and safeties?
We got some work to do, but we got some guys back there who hadn't played much. You're looking at maybe 3 guys that, first time playing college football, they 3 games in. The junior college sector is okay, but until you get on that stage, that's different. And there's some bodies out there that hadn't had that experience, but we're expecting those guys to continue to get better. And you see the improvement, week in and week out. And so just got to communicate better, and then we just got to challenge guys and win our one-on-ones.
So from the defensive side, who has kind of stood out, who's been exceptional, who's been the pleasant surprise?
Elijah Ruffin has done a good job. A young man from Northwest. He's got his first start against Mississippi State. Didn't play bad. Tobias Hinton, he's done a really good job. He had some tackles. Former Mississippi State transfer. He's played really, really well. Kenny. He's done it. Caden Kennedy, he's done a really good job, and Kenny Andrews. Those guys have really anchored it down, inside. And so if we can get them guys to continue to play at a high level, we'll be right where we need to be, coming down the stretch.
Yeah, and I thought, we gave up a lot against Mississippi State early. And, of course, they scored what they scored and gave them a short field. But I thought the defense was tenacious at times and just making it just a little harder despite the score.
Yeah, those guys, man, they take on the personality they coach, and Coach Roy, a tough guy, gonna fight and coach to the end, and that's how they played. And so we just got to clean it up. We got to, shut the explosive down, make these teams earn it, in this league. And I think, they'll be up for it. I think they kind of got the jitters out the way, and, just ready for them guys to kind of put it all together and play one complete game.
Now, special teams, you talk about punt and kickoff return and punt and kickoff coverage. How would you assess the kickers? Rogers did some punting last week. How would you assess that component?
Yeah, I think Frank, he's the older statesman back there. When he kind of settles in, he can kind of get us out of the jam. He kind of our closer. And Meach, I think he's averaging right at about 46, 47 yards, punt average, which is really good. We just got to get some air on it. Those guys work their tails off, and so we're doing a lot more. We kicking, angling. We doing a lot of things, trying to pin guys deep. So those guys are doing an amazing job, and they're accepting the challenge. And so once we snap it, we kick it, we hold it, then we got great operation and we're in good shape.
And we talked about the punt return coverage. What about kickoff return coverage? Where are you with that?
It's been good. We kicking it through the end zone pretty much, and so we hadn't had a whole lot of returns coming back, which is good. The money team is always playing at a high level. Those guys are reckless, and so we'll continue to do that.
And we've had, obviously, a kicker that can nail it from 50-plus, and so you're getting some field goal opportunities. Talk about that.
Yeah, we just got to be consistent, and make those. But we know we got a strong leg, and we expect, that phase to really be solid because we do a lot of work, on it. And so Coach Fossman, Coach Watson with that front and them specialists, man, them guys, they do a really good job. And it's almost like next man up. That's kind of, they mantra back there.
So you talked about injuries last week. You talked about Mako and some of the other injuries. Did we come out of Mississippi State? How do we come out of that game? And just overall with the bye week, kind of assessing the health of your team. Talk about that a little bit.
Reggie kind of got banged up a little bit, in that state game. But, he's walking around. Hadn't seen him doing the running. So we'll be able to tell in a couple of hours, when we hit that field in the morning. And so Injuries are part of it. That you play, you get hurt. It's next man up, and so Rod do a really good job of letting us know, who can go and who's not, and so we'll know in the morning, who can kind of strain and be able to do it, and we'll know who won't. And so overall, I think it's about what everybody is in the country, at week 4, and so we got enough bodies to be able to do it, and so it's just a next man up mentality. We got to get it done.
Speaking of next man up, you talked about the quarterback situation, obviously, with Tolbert. Talk about who's the number 2 and now the number 3, as there's been some changes there.
Yeah, Achilles Ringo, he'll be the 3rd, and Andre Washington, he'd be number 2. So we like where we at with those guys. Dre got some meaningful playing time, at Mississippi State. Got some stuff that he can do. We're excited about him. And, the baby, he just, got to be ready for it ready in today's climate. You never tell. You one snap away. I think North Carolina A&T said they got 3 quarterbacks hurt. So, only good is your bag up.
So when you look at Ringo and Washington, we saw him in live action. Talk about the dynamic that both of those bring.
Ringo more of a pocket passer, more facilitator with his arm. Got a live arm, can see it and throw it. And Dre more dual threat. He can do more of the quarterback run game and got a live arm. He might have the strongest arm out of all of them. And so, both of them have got, really good skill sets, but they totally different.
We're going to take a time out here. We'll get to some of the questions that have come in, and we'll kind of turn the corner and look ahead towards UAPB. Some questions that come in, obviously, and we'll talk about that. We'll look ahead to the Golden Lions of UAPB. We're going to be dealing with one of the top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league, receivers as well. It's a pretty good running back we're going to be looking at. So we'll take a time out here. We'll be right back after this 60-second break here on the Braves Network.
Honey, what I think you need is a socket wrench.
I played JV basketball.
I'm sorry. I don't think it looks right.
This is good, and it's all good, baby.
Is it really all good?
If you love me enough to routinely test your handyman skills, not to mention the strength of your marriage, then of course you'll visit nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure I'm in the right car seat.
I'm gonna call my dad.
We've always known that education is the pathway to greater understanding. In our School of Education and Psychology, we believe in the power of human potential, both yours and those you'll serve. You'll join a community that has always championed innovation in human development while finding your own unique path to impact. Because we've always known that teaching isn't just a career, it's a calling. Always educating, always inspiring, always Alcorn.
Back to the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you can join us. 601-301-2611, 601-877-6595. Give us a call, or on X Tallman Radio. You can text or tweet questions anytime, in between shows as well, and we'll get to those questions. And Coach, one of those questions, you were talking about the quarterback, got a text. Are you looking at recruiting more quarterbacks?
Yeah, we're looking at recruiting every position, not just quarterback. Guys was out this weekend, at the junior college sector, and also going through just the transfer portal. So, with this transfer portal today, you got to recruit forever. That's the difference in one of the landscapes. So, it's here today, gone tomorrow. And so we definitely be recruiting not only that position, but all of them.
I'm just wondering, like the NFL, quarterbacks went down, Joe Burrow went down. You sign a quarterback, I guess that's why you got to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks because you never know.
Yeah, you got to. That's it's just like any other position. Especially with how violent the game is and how the situation was. I think Alabama State had about 4 or 5 last year. You just got to be prepared. Things happening. Don't nobody want to hear. I didn't, and so you got to just make sure you got your tail covered, making sure you got some guys in there if something happen, or they leave. You got guys that will no longer want to be on the part of the football team, and so you just got to make sure you got guys that's ready to step up.
Would you say that going into this season that this was probably, in terms of numbers, roster-wise, guys out there that first day of camp, that this was probably the deepest that we've had, where you've got a lot of different players in just about every position, where it is truly a next man up mentality? We know it is, but when you got a lot of numbers, that does make a difference.
Yeah, it does. Especially with it being the second year, you always, want to kind of come in and get your own guys and get some guys that, can develop the roster, and you kind of know what you want the roster to look like. And so that's kind of how we identify this stuff as such. It's still some spots, that wasn't as deep, as others, whether with injuries or guys just, leaving. But that's just a part of it. And so we feel like we got the necessary depth, to be able to make a run and just play sound football. And so these guys just got to put it all together, and we got to do a good job of coaching to make sure we can get a win.
Coach, another question from the text line. Will big Roscoe Mallory be ready to play this weekend?
Unfortunately, no, he won't. Roscoe won't be with us.
Interesting right there. Want to follow up on what you were talking about last week, Coach, and we got some more questions coming in. We'll get to those. You know what the score and what it was and the 10-minute thing, and it got me thinking. And I don't think we talked about it last week. So when it comes to conference games, and if there's a conference game that's out of hand, there won't be 10-minute quarters for that when it comes to conference games. But in games like this, when you play up, or even if we play down, that's a possibility. But if there's a conference game that's 58-0 at half, do you think the referee would ask the losing coach for a 10-minute quarter in a SWAC game? Is that even possible, you think?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're gonna play it out.
So that's just for those type of games when you're playing up or playing down, kind of.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And
yeah.
If you check some of them scores out, it should have been some mercy rules going on Saturday. It was some 70s to something. He was Division I. I think Indiana, Illinois, it was 63-14.
Yeah.
And that's Division I. That's the 9th team in the nation to get 63 put on them. So I wondered, did they have a mercy rule in there?
Probably. I guess the answer to the question, probably not. But I guess it begs the question. Is just, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit when you're talking about player safety for those type of games. But then when you have conference games, is it not the same thing? Is it something I'm missing there?
Yeah, I don't think that part is a safety standpoint. I think that's because in the conference everybody's kind of what and what. From a talent standpoint. I hadn't played a game in this league and been a part of where you go on the other sideline and you like, they'll hurt us. They'll physically impose their will on us to the point where my kids are in danger. And so that's kind of, I think, the framework of the player safety. But when you're talking about the young man the young man playing what was at Auburn, at Southern and
Devon Gales.
Yeah, there's so many guys, man. They understand, the not only the level of competition, but just the bodies, playing at that high rate of speed for that long. Something is bound to happen even when they go to their 2s and 3s, and so. I think it's smart. I think it really is, but it won't happen in the conference. If you're down that much in conference, which I have been before, that won't be, from a physical standpoint.
The one thing I've read on social media this week, and been doing this for a minute or so, we played some games, and when we play up, we've played the USMs, we played the Mississippi States of the world. We've done that. And yet this past week and really this year, a lot of fans throughout the league, when they see these scores involving their teams, when it's 70-0 Grambling, Ohio State, or whatever it was, 63-0, our game and others, it's like, we shouldn't be playing these type of games against the Ohio States, even though it's a big time money thing. It's just one of those situations where, the injuries and 85 versus 63, 85 scholarships versus 63 scholarships. It's a situation where financially that's the reason, but then you have some other games that aren't quite as that. And you've talked about it a little bit in terms of what you would like to see. I mean, the Ohio States is one thing, but when you're playing North Texas State, for example, I mean that's just an example of one. They're not at that level, but they're still FBS. Just talk about that and where you would like to see that.
Yeah, I think it's a happy median. I think the Southern Miss of the world, or the North Texas, those conferences, even the South Alabama, Monroe, Louisiana Tech, I think those are good games, for us. But when you're talking about SEC, that's just a different beast. It's the reason why it's one of the, if not the, most premier conference, in America. It's up there with it, and so I think that's where the player safety standpoint. Comes in when you start playing those upper echelon team,
Well, we got another question, Coach. This is from someone texting from Louisiana. He says, Coach, offense had too many turnovers the last game. The returning running backs did fine. You talked about the other backs that we had. Special teams players avoid contact. Special teams was better and more exciting last year. And basically, we need a win in SWAC play. And we're getting to that point, Coach, where these non-conference games for the most part are done, and you got a full slate of games, some big games in the conference coming up.
Yeah, we understand that. Was that a question or a statement?
They were just making a statement.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought we was doing questions.
Yeah. It was a question and a comment.
So what's the question?
You were saying where are the other returning running backs, but we pretty much played the gamut of running backs from the USM game. I mean, from the Mississippi State game. Talk a bit about that in terms of we saw all of our running backs there, and just want to make. I guess they're saying that they like to see the whole running back room, but we did pretty much see that.
Yeah, I just
And then they also feel like the new running backs need more developing, especially the younger running backs.
Yeah, it's called. We got it. It's practice. Scout team and different ways. To do it. If they was developed the way we feel like they should, they'll definitely be out there. But you can't. It's hard to take. I'm kicking myself in the tail by not getting it to Sewell and Reggie, in the Northwestern game more. And so, adding somebody else to the pie right now was, we'll get to it. We'll develop and make sure they're ready. But right now, we got to give it to the bell cow so we can get that win like they stated.
And I know you take these games hard, Coach. I know you do. And obviously we saw what happened with Prairie View, Northwestern State. How far do you look back? You say you think about Northwestern State, you think about Alabama A&M as we're making the turn, and you got these conference games the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think about Alabama State, Jackson, and all the rest of them. When you're talking about a true evaluation, you have to use that as a litmus to be able to see, where you're standing and things that need to be changed. So I'm constantly doing it. I don't talk to the guys about it, but my assessment overall is all that data, being able to take all that information in, and things that need to be tweaked, things that need to be changed. So I'm constantly looking at all that information. So I'm definitely over the week we had opportunity to go back and do our self-critique of each other with the coordinators, and so I'm excited about the things that we did find and developing this team to get where we need to be.
We'll take our final break here. When we come back, folks, we'll look at UAPB, the Golden Lions. We'll take a look at that in Memphis. Big game there. The band will be there. A lot of pomp and circumstance around that game as we get the conference season underway. We'll be right back after this timeout.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm going to miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all. If I could go back, I would. But I can't.
All right, welcome back to the Cedric Thomas program. Coach, so far there's only been one SWAC game played, believe it or not. That was Texas Southern and Prairie View in the Labor Day Classic. That's the only conference game that's been played so far at this point. But we're going to make up for it this week. A bunch of games in the Southwestern Athletic Conference going forward. You talked about your evaluation, got a true test, got a chance to play up a little bit. Northwestern State, Alabama A&M. Now this is where kind of things get interesting with a full slate of games set on Saturday, beginning with our game in Memphis.
Yeah, this 7-game playoff. Every one counts, and you just got to be playing your best football, at this time. And so throw the records out the window. And now, everybody kind of familiar with each other, and we just gotta go out and execute, play at a high level, and cut down on the mishaps.
Well, let's look at the UAPB, Coach. They lost to Texas Tech, they lost to Central Arkansas, and they beat Lincoln 34-8. Just give us an opening statement and what you see from Alonzo Hampton's team.
Really physical football team. They got a bunch of running backs that's gonna hit it downhill. Physical offensive line is gonna push you around if you let them, and some speed on the edge. I think they returning number 1, who had some catches on us last year. But in this league, man, he can fly. And so you see him had some big time catches against UCA, and they move him around a lot. So we definitely got our hands full, with that Alonzo Hampton, football team, starting with that offense. But just to see him in his 3rd year, just the physicality and the makeup of those guys, they taking on to his liking, and so we definitely got our hands full.
What was interesting last year when we played them, they had Higgins and Giovanni Gibson. They slinging the ball around. I'm like, man, they finally, because Coach Hampton's a defensive guy, so he had some offense to kind of go with it. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And even though it kind of caught up with them late in the year, then they hit the portal. And so they had to kind of retool that offense a little bit. But at Media Day, Coach Hampton said there's some guys that didn't play last year that you're going to be looking at this year. And you talked about Kareem Burke, number 1, the redshirt junior, top 7 receiver. Coach got to deal with.
We got to find out where he at every time. That offense go through him and those running backs. So they'll run some play action things and hide them, run some split screens, and also some vertical concepts. So we got to make sure we're on top of the concepts on the routes, and then making sure we IDing him at all times.
He's got 8 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and their quarterback, Christian Peters, the 6'2 grad student from Charlotte, North Carolina, Shaw transfer, top 4 passer. Coach, what do you expect what do you see on film from Christian Peters?
Got a live arm. He can, make the deep out throw from the other hash from about 10 to 15 yards. I mean, he got some wiggle to him, you watch him run around, make guys miss. And so he's the typical swag quarterback from that standpoint, man. I mean, live arm, can direct traffic, can make guys miss. And, we got to bottle him up, make sure we keep contained on him to make sure he don't turn this into a backyard type football game.
When you look at their backfield, they're averaging 140 yards per game rushing, led by Jalen Jennings, top 4 rusher in the league, the 5'10 senior from Columbus, Ohio, East Mississippi Community College transfer. He's averaging 6.9 yards per carry. What do you see in him?
Physical, can jump cut it, get it to the edge, does a really good job. All those backs, man, are dynamic. So we definitely going to get 11 guys to the ball and put a hat on them.
Amazon Webster also will be carrying the football, so you'll have to keep an eye on that. From this defense, Coach, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, tied for 3rd in the conference in fumble recoveries. What do you see in this Lions defense?
Those guys, play on one accord. You see them do some strong and weak rotation from a secondary standpoint. You see the ends get up the field and do a really good job putting pressure on the quarterback, and those linebackers really hold them down inside. They fill in all the holes where anybody out of gap or not sound. And so overall, those guys play really well together. You see them against Texas Tech, get some stops once it kind of got settled down. You see them against UCA, had a big time fumble recovery, have a interception. So those guys are chomping at the bits, defensively. And when you look at them, you kind of smile and sit there and say, well, that's Coach Hampton. They coach well, they sound, and so we got to do a really good job of knowing where those guys at all time.
Coach Hampton, he's not down on his team despite the record. He's always enthusiastic, always optimistic. He looks at the brighter side of things, and hey, the sun's gonna come up the next day. We just got to get after it.
Well, I think that's just approaching life. You gotta. That's it. You can't let the 1, 2, or 3 before beat you, because those things will have you, stuck in the closet to where you don't want to come out, and then you won't be able to play your best going forward. And so you got to use those as examples of why you're in the situation, but also know that you got another day. And I think if we can apply that to everyday life, we'll get out this thing where we need to.
I know our fans are anxious, chomping at the bit, with this bye week, getting ready for this game in Memphis. Even though there's going to be some events around the game, the band's going to be involved in that. Any ancillary events around this game as far as the football team is concerned?
Nah, it just work. Everything is business from here on out. We're gonna let the fans handle the pageantry and everything that's associated with it. But we got at the stadium, we got walkthroughs in the hotel, and it's time to go to work.
And this game was originally scheduled for Pine Bluff, moving it to Memphis and making it a classic. There'll be a lot of alums there. Cedric Thomas, Memphis is a pretty good hub.
Yeah, it's really good. You know, I told AD today, it was from 87, 88 to probably 95. You know, a couple of times I was going to Memphis, you know, a lot when I was younger, but it was to go to Liberty Land and go to the Classic. And so years later to be able to go, you know, now to be a participant of it as a coach and bring the team up, man, is really an honor. And so we want to have it every year. You know, we want to be able to put a good product out there so they're willing to open the doors up to where we can come and do this every year. I know the fans will be here, be there and be in great support in masses, and so it's a great hub for both alumni bases. And so we just want to put a good product out there and get what these young men deserve, and that's a win.
Yeah, speaking of that, I know our fans are anxious for a win. It's been tough. We got the bye week to kind of think about it. Now we got to put it behind us and get ready for this week. What would you say to Braves fans as we get ready for the conference game? Hey, this first conference game against UAPB. What would you say to Braves fans to kind of get them charged up and ready to go?
No, I can't. I don't have no words to get them charged up. But they ain't anxious as this team. I got to go see in a couple hours about a win. That's who really anxious. About the win. The fans gonna be the fans. You know, they show by their actions. You know, they gonna show up and support, and we just got to give them some proud to support consistently. And these guys, they work their tails off. They overdue for it. You know, we just got to do the small things, come out and work, and the outcome will take care of itself. But they definitely anxious, you know, for their first win of the year.
Final question, Coach. Keys to victory.
You know, we got to special team. You know, we can't turn it over. That's got to be the point to get us over the top. You know, offensively, we got to run the football, be sound, and defensively, we got to stop the run game. If we do that, you know, we'll have a good time coming back.
Have a good time coming back, and then the first home game awaits. I'm looking forward to it. Coach, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.
That's Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas on the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you can join us. We'll talk to you next Monday night. We'll recap the UAPB game and look ahead to Prairie View. A lot of big games in the league. We'll be talking about all that as well as the UAPB game next week. Cedric Tillman, Jamario Brooks, our producer. I'm Charles Edmond. Glad you can join us. We'll talk to you next Monday night. So long.